Honestly, if people just drank water, like the simplest thing on the face of the planet, every single person, yourself included, myself included, around 4 liters of water a day, two from 6 to noon, two from noon to 6. And if you just drank water, they would do so many things in your body. It flushes out any kind of toxins, helps you go ahead and get rid of lactic acid, metabolizes food, allows you to be regular. Like there's so many things just from that. And that's probably the most simple thing that so many people don't do.
Welcome back to The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am here with Alan Dyck, who is a coach and personal trainer. He's up in Kelowna, Canada, and I came across Alan because of a health and fitness program that I'm doing with Dan Martell. And Dan had, well, actually, I'm curious, Alan, we can dive into the backstory of how your paths crossed. But from just a personal experience in doing this program, I'm now on day 49. I am just like, I reached out to you, Alan, was like, I've had so many people ask questions about what are you doing or why are you doing this? And I'm like, all I know is that this guy has an incredible resume and the results speak for themselves. So I'm so busy, I don't have time to be the health and science nerd that's diving in and doing all the back research, which is why I'm paying you to help me. So I'm excited to talk about the logistics and just like I would say the common misconceptions that people have in our world when it comes to looking good, being fit, and just feeling healthy. So that's the intro for the conversation today. But without further ado, Alan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Honestly, thank you very much, Chris. And you've had some pretty insane results over the last 49 days. I saw your picture you sent to me a little while ago, and it's pretty awesome. Like, you look amazing.
What would you say the biggest misconceptions or like just like the bad knowledge that's out there that people would almost say is common knowledge, but it's just like incorrect that you hear people come to you and talk about?
Well, I really get frustrated when people talk about, half fat or diet this or, low calorie this or low calorie that, because the body can't recognize the stuff that they use to cut it with. And so a lot of people have this assumption that, okay, well, less calories means I'm going to lose more weight, which in turn does make sense when you say it out loud. But the reality is when you actually eat what the body is supposed to, it'll recognize it better and you'll actually drop. So going on these extreme diets where people cut all these weight, or I'm going to say it out loud, keto, I do not believe in it for an X number of things. The body needs carbs for the brain. And so when you incorporate everything the way you're supposed to, it seems to just click. But a lot of people have that misconception because they think the less they eat, the better it's going to be for the body. But the less you eat, what happens is your body actually gets super stressed out and it doesn't know when it's going to get its next set of calories. So because you're under eating, not knowing, it literally will just hold on to it. Even if you're that kind of person that only has one meal a day, you can still gain weight because of that factor.
So what is your like you obviously you take great care of yourself now. Have you always been like this, or was there like a turning point in your life? Like, give me the backstory of how you got to where you are.
Okay, well, I actually have to do a talk on the 24th of this month, and I've never actually said this out loud, but when I was 23, I was 100 pounds overweight. And my turning point was I worked at a fine dining, well, semi-fine dining place called Ruth Chris. And we had this uniform we had to wear, these slip-on shoes. And I had this technique because I was so heavy, being 100 pounds overweight, everything was laborsome for me. And I had to blow out my air to literally put on these slip-on shoes. That was my aha moment or my rock bottom. And I just knew that things had to change because it couldn't carry on that way because I didn't know where I would end up, whether it would be, dead in the hospital, this and that, because at that age, if you're already 100 pounds overweight, it's only going to get worse. And so,
And that was at
my
20, 21,
23.
23.
Yeah.
And then
I had a
and then you just
strict,
were like, were you already like a trainer or anything? Or you
nope.
just were like,
I was
so
just literally
educationally at that point, what was your background?
none, zero. I literally, all I did was work. We worked in the Cayman Islands. I was a bartender. I was a server, did that kind of stuff. Then came to Canada, did the same thing, and just kept gaining weight. Like I was unhealthy. I ate Reese's Pieces, Buttercups, Twinkies, and any kind of fast food, and that was my thing. And when that moment happened, I just turned back my hat and said, "This has got to change." And that's when I dove into, finding out what's healthy. For the next 2.5 months, I ate nothing but chicken and tomatoes, did cardio, and I just did circuits at the gym because I didn't know what I was doing. And I lost 100 pounds in 2.5 months.
Oh my gosh. And that's a
So
pretty brutal way way to do it,
It
but it
was it
worked.
was a really bad way to do it, but I just kept thinking to myself, how I'm feeling and where I'm going is not going to be a sustainable thing. So I needed to make a change. The only shitty thing is I didn't know which direction to go. So I knew that those things were healthy for me and they seemed to work right away. But after that, my mentor that I have, his name's Ross Duncan, that taught me a lot of the stuff I know now. He was the one that said, so many people overcomplicate things when it can be simplified. But then to put everything into practice of what I've learned over the years, now it's just game over.
Mm. So I've got a couple different angles or things that I'm interested in learning about. But first thing is, I am coaching a basketball team. So it's a new high school in the area, and I'm passionate about basketball, but I haven't coached in like 8 years. So it's a brand new school, really small. Like there's 60 people in the whole school, and so the basketball team is going to have like 12 guys on it, and they're not, you know, it's not your pick of
Litter?
yeah, from like a big huge school,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you've heard of Dan Sullivan, who wrote 10x is easier than 2x, or
Yep.
Benjamin Hardy. um Anyways, there's this idea of like setting this impossible goal for the team, which would be, in my mind, it's like we're going to, like, the philosophical one is like, I want to create better men, and better, like, men that are feel good, have good, like, we're working on our habits and the process of becoming a great person. And in the short term, we're going to set our sights on a championship, right? Which is a
Of course.
ridiculous goal for this level. Like, in the past, if the school's been around for 2 years, this wouldn't have been something that anyone else would have suggested, because it's almost laughable, like when you see the kids. But in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, it is possible. Like, I genuinely think it is possible, even in a ridiculously short period of time, if your standards for how you live, like what you eat, what your day looks like, what time you go to bed, what your workouts are, the strategy that we implement in games and whatnot. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm like, I really want to focus on like personal transformation. And again, these are all, what would it be, 14 to 18-year-old boys, men. And so I'm curious for you, the part that I haven't figured out yet or don't have a plan around is the fitness and nutrition aspect of it. So, like, I would say my assumption is these kids aren't, like, they don't need to cut weight at this point. Most of them are just scrawny.
Yeah.
But what's like first of all, is there like an age range where you feel like it's less critical or can be harmful to focus too much on what, like, the health and fitness, diet and fitness? Or how does that evolve as you go from like a young teenager to an adult? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And actually, even my little guy at 11 years old, this year, right when he turned 11, I said, you know what? Now he's ready to start understanding what we're eating, why we're eating it, how we're eating it, and, like, all the things that make up the food to give us the energy. And so I went ahead and put him a little meal plan together, but I don't put the calories at the bottom because I don't want him to develop a complex. But I just want him to understand that, there's X amount of proteins that are good for you, X amount of carbs, X amount of fat. So he can start to get that knowledge even at a younger age. When it comes to exercise, honestly, with him, if I'm going to use him, that's a starting point. I have him doing push-ups. He has to add 10 a week. And right now he's up to 100. He can do 100 at one time. And so, that's what I'm focusing on for him. Over the next year or two, I'll start to transition him into my studio. Like, I have brought him in here a couple times just to kind of run through them stuff because he likes that daddy does it. But when it comes to teenagers, same kind of thing. Introducing them to understand what a protein is, what a carb is, what a fat is, because it's unbelievable how many people actually just don't know, like, that simple stuff. And when you go ahead and realize that, you're supposed to have X number of all of those things to equal the total amount of calories that you're supposed to consume to go in the right direction and get that energy, it's mind blowing. But it's like, for those kids there, making sure to eat within 60 minutes of getting up is probably the most important thing on the face of the planet, because they don't have a ton of muscle on their body. And so what happens is, if you're not eating within the first 60 minutes, they're burning muscle protein as an energy source. And because they don't have a lot of it, they're going to be baggish throughout the rest of the day. So it's nice to go ahead and get them started off with something that's going to, kickstart them from the day. And that's what I do with my little guy.
And so you'd say that for, like, talking to high school men, it'd be like, step one is understand the different types of macronutrients that you
For
can
sure.
eat.
Yep.
And then does the ratio of what someone at that stage of life change compared to like what I'm doing?
Yes, actually, what you're doing, because you're getting a lot leaner now. So what happens is the leaner you get, the more calories you need to consume to maintain what you have to go up. If you're a little bit heavier and you were to consume the same amount of calories that I'm going to now give you, you'd actually continue to gain weight, because the more insulation in the way, the less the body has time to move around. And like, you want to be like a hummingbird. You want to be ready for your next meal. So you want your body to be burning it off like crazy. When you're a little bit heavier, you can't necessarily eat as many calories because your body's not moving and functioning the way it should inside. And so for any of these kids that are really, really scrawny or lean, that's when, you're going to give them 2,000, 3,000 calories, because they're going to be burning it off like crazy. And what happens is, what I do for a lot of my kids that are younger, I'll start them off with, because they don't have a lot of muscle, their protein is fairly low. And that's, as long as they have protein in their system, they need the carbs and the fat to give them energy to be able to go ahead and even put on muscle, get through the day, get through, basketball, be able to do that kind of stuff. But it's nuts how many people don't understand. I trained a guy named Adam Foote. He was a hockey player for Colorado Avalanche. He was the head coach for the Kelowna Rockets here. And it was unbelievable. I was training one of his sons, and it was crazy to know that even their coaches and their trainers had no idea what to give them for food. They just said, you know what, get the calories in, because you're going to go ahead and burn them off. I do not believe in calorie in, calorie out. I believe in healthy calories in, bad calories out.
So like what would the 80-20 be, or is it possible to break it down for a stereotypical, let's say 16-year-old? It's like, what's the number of, do you go by grams of each of the macronutrients?
I
Like, do you
go
need
by
100 grams of protein and like this and that or whatever?
I base mine on calories, but to get the grams, it's divided by 4. So it's like, I would say for a 16-year-old kid, if they're not necessarily exercising, that's where they can stay at like 0.75 per pound that they have for protein. If they're exercising, you can go up to a pound, like 1 gram per body pound. And that's where you can get that protein number. Because what I find is a lot of people will consume too much protein. So for instance, if you're 200 pounds, but you're only 160 pounds underneath that 200, that extra 40 pounds, consuming the calories to get to that 200-pound number, there's nothing in the way. There's not that much muscle. So you don't need that much protein, because the body is not going to utilize it the way it's supposed to. Then when it comes to carbs, the carbs are like the most important thing you're possibly going to take in. Fats are important because the higher carbs you have, the higher the fat you need to metabolize the carbs. So a lot of people will just be like, okay, I need carbs, but they don't understand they're supposed to have fat with it to make them work together.
Mm. So you're saying for a 160-pound kid, they would do 160 pounds divided by 4, and that's
100 so for a 160-pound kid, he would be 160 times 4, it would be 640 calories or 160 grams. But for the
of
carbs, I would
protein,
double those of protein. Yes.
and then double that for carbs.
Oh, for sure, because they're active, they're moving, they're always standing, they're always doing something. Like, it gets different as you get older, or if you have a sedentary life or you have an office job, that's where things will change. But these kids are just like, they're just firing on all cylinders right now.
Mm. Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that, because I'm curious if you what I'm trying to do. I'm just like approaching this from like a completely radical perspective, but I want to bring in different people, like mindset, health, and nutrition, and basically just provide resources
Of
that
course.
these kids can take. So that's something that I'm like, I personally, I just love the idea of this microcosm of a basketball season to show what, like for myself, I'm 45 days in, which would be like halfway through the basketball season, and I'm already transforming in a way that I'm like blown away by. So now I'm like, what if we, in addition to everything else we're going to do, like journaling is going to be a big thing, and just deciding for yourself, what do I want to do today? And then evaluating, did I do it? Did I live up to the version of myself that I wanted to be? Those types of things are super exciting to me, because that's like a life skill that's going to transcend and go into,
Oh,
anything else as well.
honestly, if I had known even a fraction of what I know now when I was younger, it would have been a game changer. And so that's why I love, doing these groups and training all these people online, where like Dan has opened the doors for me to kind of get to that. And now it's kind of running on its own. And just to be able to see like all the transformations and all the people changing, and just that for me is like the reason why obviously I started doing this, because I wanted to have somebody, like when I was heavy, I had nothing to compare how I felt to feel good too. So I just thought this was normal. So giving people and myself, the opportunity to be like, hey, this is how you're supposed to feel. Now they have something to compare it to, and they won't go back. So
Yeah.
it's like giving them that advice at an early age. It's game over. It's awesome.
Mm. Okay. So another thing that, well, I guess I would go back to like jumping out of the basketball world into just like common, um, just like I'm trying to think the calories in, calories out. That's a great example of commonly said. It's like a very common phrase that you hear everywhere. You just
Hmm.
explained why that it's not really how it works from how the body processes those calories.
No,
What are the other like key things that you're like, if everyone just understood that these are myths or not true, they would radically change the way they feel and look?
honestly, if people just drank water, like the simplest thing on the face of the planet, every single person, yourself included, myself included, around 4 liters of water a day, two from 6 to noon, two from noon to 6. And if you just drank water, they would do so many things in your body. It flushes out any kind of toxins, helps you go ahead and get rid of lactic acid, metabolizes food, allows you to be regular. Like there's so many things just from that. And that's probably the most simple thing that so many people don't do because they have a hard time drinking water because they're just not used to it. When people just get into it and they feel bloated and this and that because they haven't done it, I just make sure they push through because eventually they're going to start to feel like, wow, like I'm losing water retention, I'm looking better, I'm feeling better, I'm better, it's better for my skin, like, and that's just water. And so like everybody starts the day off with a coffee when they technically they're not going to get much energy. It's like a false impression of energy from caffeine. Don't get me wrong, it gives you a little bit of burst, but that burst goes away. You go ahead and actually have some water or some oatmeal or some maple syrup or some raisins. And now that's like a pre-workout, but that's natural, healthy, and so good for you. So like even that little bit changes so many things.
First of all, I'm curious, where do you like, have you ever supplemented or used testosterone at any point? Because I feel like that's another misconception, I think, in the world is that everyone assumes the only way to achieve this is through artificial means.
Honestly, even I'm going to bring Dan into this a little bit based on how he looks like right now. We started January 3rd, and don't get me wrong, he looked okay, but now he looks absolutely amazing. And all we did was take off 25 pounds and add 20 back. He looks like a completely different person, but he looks like 99% of the people that they want to look like in the gym because he tries. He doesn't miss a beat. He's always perfect with his food. He tries harder in the gym than I've ever seen anybody else do it. And that top 1% that are going to go to complete failure, the amount of muscle that you're able to put on, because most people aren't willing to push that hard. And as long as you're feeding the body and resting the way you're supposed to, a lot of people literally ask him what he's on. He is currently on nothing. I will say though, for myself, heart problems run in my family. And so my dad had a heart attack, my grandfather had a heart attack, my other grandfather had a heart attack. So what happens when it's genetically gifted to myself at a young age? Because as long as your dad has a heart attack under 55, I'm basically genetically screwed. So at about 5, 6 years ago, I went to the hospital, got a bunch of tests done, and found out that my testosterone was super low, was sitting at a 4. It could be all the way to a 29. The doctor, the specialist literally said to me, he's like, that's where heart problems start. When your testosterone is really low, there's a range of things that can go ahead and happen. And that is their number one. So I went to see a cardiologist and they put me on TRT, which is, it's like, what is it, 135 milligrams a week. And it brought my test levels from 4 to 12. And as long as they're in the middle range, that helps me as a kind of a longevity thing. So that's what I tell a lot of my guys, especially once they get into their 40s, is go get your levels checked. Don't go to a regular doctor, go to a specialist. They're going to do a whole panel on you because it's important that you're basically in tip-top shape. A lot of my clients and stuff like that, they do tend to do more, but that's on a grander scale for whatever kind of goal they're looking for. But you know what? With that little in my body, because my body's not producing what it should, it basically just tops me up to go ahead and move forward. But a lot of people have to realize that I'm 42 years old and I've been working out since I was 23. And if you're putting on about 4 to 5 pounds of muscle a year, as long as you're on point, this is where I should be. So that's the misconception. If I take a week or two off from the gym, I don't lose a ton because I put on a lot of quality muscle. It doesn't go away anymore. I can't just stop and all of a sudden be 180 pounds. When you go ahead and actually get TRT, they're not giving you enough to get those crazy results. So it's just enough to bring you back to you were when you were younger. And so it's more of a health effect as opposed to a physical effect. You'll notice you'll have more energy, so you'll be more alert because your testosterone is going to be a little bit higher. So you're going to feel more on the ball, but it's not like The second you start taking TRT, you're going to be like, holy shit, I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not going to be like one of those things. So that's where a lot of people think that, oh, okay, well, if you're on TRT, this is the reason why you look the way you do. That's false. Because those guys that do that are going to sit between, 250, 300, 400 milligrams, and they're going to go above and beyond. And that's when you get those results.
Okay.
But like, I look at it for a health aspect or a health kind of, and that's what I would do if I were you. I would go and get it checked, like you said, and then up it and see how you feel, because you want to feel like $1,000,000 all the time, regardless of your age.
And what I was like, and I don't know if you've helped anyone discover this or if it's even worth the pursuit of it, but why is our testosterone so much lower than it was? I've been told that like 60 years ago, there was the average testosterone level of all men was like double what it is now. And I
I
don't know,
would say
I don't know if is that like in the
like,
ballpark?
well, I would say that, primarily it's what we eat. You are what you eat. However corny it sounds, I believe that's a number one factor. Back in the day, like, the organic chicken that we get now is probably the chicken that we used to just buy back in the day. But now they can find out they can make so much more money by putting all these extras in it, making it cheaper. Well, people don't have as much money. They're going to get the cheaper one. So I believe it starts with the food and the things we're putting in our mouth. And honestly, a ton of people sit on their ass a lot more than they used to. Like, there are so many more sedentary people that are just, working from the desk, working from home, this and that. Like, I talked to my grandfather or my dad, even then, my dad's 71. They didn't do that. It just wasn't a thing. They ate differently. They worked differently. Their work ethic was different than a lot of people nowadays. And they're just like, they were always just shot out of a cannon. So I believe it's a portion of food. I would say that's the majority of them, and sedentary lifestyle.
Thyroid. How does your thyroid impact any of this stuff? Because I am on levothyroxine because I have Hashimoto's, and so that's the only thing that I'm currently taking is thyroid to basically, and I'm terrible with understanding the science, but it is increasing the one that's low, TSH or something like that. But is that another thing that's like for one thing that was crazy was I actually got tested 6 to 9 months ago and had sleep apnea, and then I got on thyroid medication, and I hadn't started this program yet, but I got retested, and just fixing my thyroid took away my sleep apnea, which was crazy. But the endocrinologist said that's common.
You know what? Honestly, only 1% of the population actually have thyroid issues and stuff. And so, those people that come in and say, you know what, I'm heavy or I'm not able to lose weight or whatever, it's because of my thyroid. Half the time they're full of shit. But like for you yourself, it's actually hard for people that do have a thyroid issue to lose weight. And so the fact that you're able to actually drop this weight, it's actually kind of a great thing, because so many people go to so many lengths when they're taking thyroid medication because it has an adverse effect of weight gain. So it's like you've got to be more on in order to go in the right direction. So those little slip ups can cause a big, huge gain, and for somebody that is on it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. What else is like? Why do you mentioned a couple times like this is why I do what I do, but what would you say like the motivation is for you to continue to push and to, like why are you doing what you're doing?
Like, for myself or for work?
Both.
Honestly, for myself, where I was when I was 23, I never wanted to be there again. But then I want to set a standard for my kids and my family, and to understand, for them to see, dad continue to go in the right direction regardless of how old he gets. Whenever I go pick up my kids, it's actually upsetting that these people in their 30s or early 40s, it's like they just give up. And, when you have kids, they literally look at you like you're Superman. And it doesn't matter what kind of parent you are, that's through their eyes. And I always want my kids to understand that, daddy did everything he could. He taught us what it was like to eat healthy. He practiced what he preaches. And I'm always on the go. I want to make sure that they always can see that, like, I've got so much energy until I sit down. They know that when daddy sits down, it's over. I fall asleep within seconds because I get up so early in the morning. But I want them to appreciate having a dad or a father that, is able to do the things that they want to do, because they're able to do so much more because they're younger, like hockey, ballet, this and that. So I always want to be able to keep up. what I do for my clients is I want them to experience the same thing. I want, that mom that just had a baby to be able to pick up her kid without her lower back being sore. I want, someone that was overweight to feel what it's like to actually have energy and look at themselves in the mirror and like what they see, not be mortified or don't even do it, and wear clothes where they feel sexy. And, a big thing for me is having, people feel comfortable in their own skin. They want to look good naked. I don't want to have to go to Lululemon to put on something to make myself look good. And so that kind of stuff motivates me more than anything on the face of the planet. I understand when I help somebody, the weight loss is going to happen, but it's all those extra things like I've got more energy. I'm way more active with my husband. My relationship is better because I'm more confident. Like all those things are the reason I do this.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like it's crazy. This is there's so many things in the workout world that's interesting to me that I started going to this one gym. I literally, when I started this program, I changed because I've been doing CrossFit for like the last 8 years, and I've done marathons and triathlons, and like I still had just like a lot of extra weight. I was like, I've literally been running around life with just a weight vest on, it's
Okay.
just like
So
until
you got
now,
big
I'm
calves
like,
then.
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually curious I haven't been in the gym in a while. I'm like, I wonder if my vertical or how that's been impacted or if I've lost too much. Like, cause I'm assuming in the cutting phase, you do lose some muscle mass too, right? You're trying to
Okay. So
maximize fat, but you are losing some muscle.
yes, you are. And like even for myself, I do one show a year. I've got 9 months to prep and build anything that's weak before I start cutting because I know once I cut, once again, I can't put on a single ounce of muscle and I'm at a deficit. So you will lose muscle. That's why when I start dieting down, I tend to up the amount of protein that I take in just to go ahead and cover that. And for you yourself, you know what? Once you like now that you're back in the gym and you're exercising, your calories are there. Once those calories start going up, because now that you're as lean as you are, the calories are going to change. Now you're going to go into recomp and you're actually going to be able to put on muscle and you're going to be able to blow through what you ever were before.
And that's another thing is that, so the idea of, that made me think that everyone starts with this cleanse, right? And this is the cleanse that you've done with your clients for a long time, right?
21 years.
And so why is it 16 days? What is that doing for you before just jumping into the diet? That's a common question I got asked. And I was just like, I don't know. I just did it, followed it. It was hard and it was great. And now I'm through it.
Okay, so the reason why I do the 16-day cleanse is to go ahead and clean everything out that's not supposed to be inside you. And once again, it's not a cleanse. It's going to make you go to the bathroom a lot, but you're just going to pee a lot because you're going to lose that bloating and water retention. But all the food in there, it's there's no starchy carbs, there's no heavy things like that because basically what happens is we have a ton of stuff stuck inside us, and when you go ahead and consume protein and salads, you got to think of it, or sorry, not protein and salads, vegetables and salads. Think of it like this. The vegetable is the broom, cleans out the inside of your arteries. The salad is the hose, and it flushes it through your system. So when we go ahead and we do a majority of that for 16 days, along with protein to maintain whatever muscle mass we do have, even though the protein is lower, the pros outweigh the cons for that 16 days because now you're going to drop 10, 20, 25 pounds in that 16 days, feel better. If you think about it like this, when you're putting on 3 to 5 pounds of muscle a year, 16 days is a very low number to think about on the grand scheme of things. But the cleanse itself is just getting you ready to be able to absorb my whole foods that I give you in the next nutrition plan. Because if I were to jump somebody right into it, I find it's kind of hard. It takes them a little longer for their body to kickstart. Because what happens is I can put somebody on a food plan that has never done the cleanse. I've only done it maybe once or twice in the total of 21 years because they were so allergic to a lot of the stuff that was on there. And what I found was it took them about 2 or 3 weeks longer to kickstart their metabolism to all of a sudden notice the changes. So that was hard for them. And that's why I use the 16-day cleanse because it's an instant, holy shit, what
Psychologically,
else
you're
can I
like,
do?
this is working. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's when someone drops a minimum of 14 pounds in 16 days, they're like, I just started. What else can I do? So it's
Yeah.
nice. It's like a
And the
hook and
mindset's
then we're good.
huge. Yeah,
Oh,
totally.
And the clarity, like when I go to this summit, one of the ladies that's actually in charge of it, she was telling me that she was doing my cleanse. I didn't even know her, never heard her before. And she just said after 3 days, she actually had to go ahead and stop her metformin. So it actually took off some of her medication she was taking. I've noticed that guys had to go ahead and stop their gout medication because of the cleanse. So this is where I come back to. I believe there's so much we can do with the food we eat, calorie out. I do not believe it, because there are so many healthy foods and so many bad foods with a lot of the fads that are out there now.
Mm. And at the end of the day, it's literally like just focusing on eating whole foods
Yes.
is like, and I
Like
don't know, I get super frustrated because of how much of the food in the grocery store is just
it
working
shouldn't be
against
there.
you. Yeah, it's
Yes.
just like, why is it so hard to eat healthy? Like that's
It's
what,
because they give you the options. And when you go to the States, like we just got back from Vegas and the Olympia, when you go to the grocery store, it's actually insane how much extra shit is in there. And like, if you can't recognize it or understand what the ingredients is, don't put it in your mouth.
yeah, it's
That's
literally
it.
like 90% of the grocery store is like
Yes.
not going to
Just get
help
rid
you.
of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is crazy. So with you do the cleanse, then you do this. And I think you've said some of this stuff in different calls, but for people listening that haven't, they're not in the fitness group. Why why the phases? So you go from the cleanse to then this fat loss phase, correct?
Yep.
And what's I think if I'm remembering correctly, you said you like doing that first because psychologically you're just feeling better and you're kind of shedding off all the fat. So then you're like, people are noticing, as opposed to you've said it is possible to gradually get to a really fit place without focusing on fat loss. It just is like slogging through
It
mud.
takes longer. So
Yeah.
like I tell any client that steps in my office that I talk to on the phone, it's like, we can either take a plane or a bus. What do you want to do? And so it's like, if we take a bus, don't get me wrong, we're going to get there, but it's more frustrating for the client because it takes longer. But I have to let them know, because if someone's got 25 pounds to lose, and that's just me guessing. When I see somebody, I'm pretty good after this long to be like, hey, we've got about 25 pounds to lose to be at your optimal weight. We can either take that 25 pounds and spread it out over 6 months. Don't get me wrong, they'll do it. But then I'm going to feel like I did a disservice to them, because it bothers me. It literally eats me up inside. Like I love what I do. So when I tell them, hey, we can carry off and we can take off 10 to 14 right away, it's an instant hook. And they just feel that much, like you said, that much more motivated to jump into the next thing. And then it just keeps going like you are doing yourself.
And so for me, when is or anyone, but also for myself, I started at 237, 236. I'm now at 210. And I've been like, in the last couple of days, I've been, I actually I was low, it was 209, and I was 210, 211, 212, and back at 211. And so at what point is it all based on physical look, or like, do you also just say, oh, you're 6'6"? So, I mean, once you hit this weight with the muscle mass that you have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't base it on a number, because you don't know how much that individual has worked out in the past. It's because if you have more muscle on you, you're going to weigh heavier than somebody else that didn't. They might weigh 190 pounds, as you might weigh 205. So that plays a big factor in it. So that's why number one of my questions are like, have you been active? Have you worked out before? And if so, how long? And so I like to bring everybody down to that point where they either have that six pack, or a woman has that flat stomach, or they feel comfortable. And now, we look the way we want. And what I was going to say to you, if your weight tends to stay the same, and I tend to tell a lot of females this because they get frustrated with the scale if they're weighing themselves. It doesn't matter if if the scale doesn't move, because your body is physically still changing. And if your composition is still changing and you're feeling leaner in your midsection, you've got more vascularity, you're noticing more things changing, I don't give a shit that your weight doesn't move, because we're still moving in the right direction. But it's for me to tell that person that, because so many people rely on happy or sad based on what that number reads in the morning. And that's not the case. That will come. But like, once again, you want to look the best you can. And with eating the foods that I give, because they're all whole foods, you're sexy from the inside out.
Yeah. And so then when do you switch to the what is it called? The
body recomp, or kind of any kind of hypertrophy training where we actually start to put on muscle, because you want to make sure that you're in a calorie surplus or your weight stays the same. So there's two ways to go ahead and put on muscle. If the body doesn't move at all, you're still burning fat, but now you're able to put on muscle. The second you're in a deficit and your weight's dropping, now we're not putting on muscle. So for any guy, I want them to have a six pack. I want them to be damn near shredded. And when they are, and we go the opposite direction, you're actually going to eat more calories and even start to lose more weight, because now your body's just firing on all cylinders. So for a lot of my guys, I want to make sure they put on about 1 to 3 pounds a week, or 1 to 3 pounds a month when they make that transition over. Because now you're going to notice that your midsection stays tight, but now you're going to fill up on your shoulders, your chest. You're going to notice that you're starting to feel more of like a man, like, holy shit, I can start to feel my muscles picking up now.
And so for myself, mentally focusing on the like a target to like make the switch, is it a what are the things, and maybe I'm trying to systemize it too much. It's like, I don't know, it could be a week, could be a month, could be 2 months, or is it like once you're at this weight, or it's when you're at this body fat percentage, or
I
when
would say
this is
body fat
visible?
percentage, because once again, we don't know for weight. A lot of my clients that have done shows, I know where they were the previous year. So I know if this guy weighed in at 200 pounds and he was shredded, he's going to weigh 204 to 205 next year. So that I have that guarantee based on the fact that I saw him go down as far as he can. So with you, we're going to keep going down. If the weight comes off and you keep feeling leaner, and you can go ahead and barely pinch the bottom part of your midsection, because that's where a lot of us guys hold our last little bit of weight. It's that last 2 or 3 inches from our waistband up all the way around. So when you can get to the point where you don't actually pinch any of that, we're right there. And now it's time to go the other direction.
Okay. And then there's the recomp, and is there anything after that, or that's like the you
So
stay in that?
what I tend to do is, with the recomp, I like it to be at least 3+ months, because after you diet down this far, your body is a sponge. And so it literally, when I give you the next amount of food, it's just going to suck it up like it's going out of style, because you're going to get cheat meals, you're going to get free calories every day, you're going to look forward to it. It's a very different beast. It's like, if most people could go ahead and sacrifice 2, 3, 4 months to put in the time to get to where they want to be, their life would be 1,000 times better, on the sense that they would get to go out for dinners, they wouldn't feel bad about it, they've worked their ass off for it. I make sure to educate so they understand what to pick from, because they know how it's going to make them feel. So all those come into phase 2, or cleanse, phase 2. And then I do that for about 3 or 4 months. And then you kind of do like a little mini cut. So as long as we're still shredded while we're going up, I won't touch it. But if we start to get to the point where we put on a little bit of weight, you do a little mini cut for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I was telling, like, I genuinely think my daily meals and just like what I'm eating is just flat out better than what it was before. Like, I enjoy it more. The only thing that I miss right now is like when I go to like a date with my wife, it's just like I'm the pain in the ass customer that's like,
Don't
so
put
can
that on
I
there.
get can I get the sirloin steak, but nothing on it, and I don't need any
Plain.
of the sides. I just need lettuce and some balsamic or something.
So that's
Um,
where everything changes, and you're gonna love it. So I've had X amount of people. Adam Roche, the guy that's putting on the summit in South Carolina, he's now on phase 2, and he is loving it more than like he could possibly imagine, because he gets those free calories. He gets that cheat meal a week where he can go ahead and not feel guilty. He can go out with his wife and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm saying. If most people could put in the time to get to that, it's game over. Like, it's just, and then people are going to ask you, like, how the can you weigh this much or look this good and eat this much food? So like, that's where it's addicting, because other people want to do the same thing.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited for it. I I'm excited about this because there's been so many people that have asked a lot of questions that I'm just like, I don't know. So now I can say, well, listen to this episode and figure it out for yourself. Um, for my wife, so we're pregnant again and due in May. So she was thinking about doing this type of thing, but now she's pregnant, obviously. So uh, what is like? I don't have you have you done work with people that are pregnant,
Yeah.
and then also obviously after pregnancy, then you can get super hardcore about it. But how does this change for someone that is pregnant? Or what would you say the goal should be for someone that's pregnant?
Honestly, the goal all any female has to do is give their body an extra 300 calories a day to make sure the baby is perfect. And if you think there's only X amount of calories in a pound, 300 calories a day is not that bad. But I would say, like, even for my ex-wife, her mom said, it's okay. You're only pregnant once. Eat whatever you want. And then she gains 80 pounds, but then she's the person that has to take that weight off. So I would say just focusing on the fact that, eat what her body wants, because they're all going to have different cravings and stuff. But just for them to understand and know that 300 calories is all they need above and beyond what they were supposed to take in before. And if you're going to exercise, make sure to maintain that exercise all the way up until the baby's born. Because if you start doing it halfway through, it's a shock to the system. So you're better off to continue doing it if you were, or to maintain it. And if not, you have to wait until it's done.
And then what about dealing with nausea or things that like, I mean, obviously they say eat protein, eat small meals throughout the day, things like that. But she's Natalie, like with my meal prepping, she's like so sick of vegetable smell apparently, because I'm eating, like, I go to the grocery store now on Sunday and get more vegetables than I'd ever eat in a month. And I like cook it all, chop it up, cook it into all the different meals, and I eat that many vegetables in a week. But all when I'm microwaving the food, she's just like, oh gosh, I got to go outside. I can't be in here. So like, are there any strategies that you're aware of for
Yes.
that?
So, and even for you guys and stuff that you're cooking your vegetables, you can have any no salt seasoning whatsoever. And there is a ton of them out there. You can use any kind of fresh herbs and stuff like that. Just stay away from any salts for right now. But I would say, make the food taste good. We go to Costco and there's a ton of different cool no salt seasonings. We have Flavor God. So, wherever you are, you might have something similar to that. Mrs. Dash, that's a really good one. So it gives it some form of flavor, but it's not just plain. Because, like, once again, just
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Um, yeah. Any other advice or like FAQs that you want to answer that people always ask?
my top three are: eat within 45 to 60 minutes of getting up. Make sure to go ahead and spread your meals over 12 hours a day. Don't eat past 6 o'clock. And try not eat heavy carbs at dinner time. Think of it like this. When you take off in a plane, it's got a ton of gas. It doesn't go as fast as it's going to when it gets closer to the end of the destination, because it doesn't have as much gas in it. Think of your body as the same. You eat more in the beginning, more carbs to fuel you for the rest of the day. As the day starts carrying on, you take out those carbs. So then when you're sleeping, because the body burns carbs, fat, and protein, it will go ahead and attack fat while you're sleeping. That's why it's so important to kind of lower the carbs, if to any, at dinner time. So you have that system kick in while you're sleeping. So you wake up hungry. So honestly, that along with the 4 liters of water, and just understanding what you eat, understand what's in your food. Like when you look at the back of something, if you can't recognize every word that's in there, I would have a hard time putting it in my stomach. And it is what it is. I've been doing this for a very long time, so I've just got it down pat. But it's really hard for a lot of people to make that transition, to that switch, like to know that I've never put dairy in a plan other than pure liquid whipping cream, because dairy causes inflammation, irritation, and rash in the body. But people love cheese. So, they took it off the Canadian Food Guide 2 or 3 years ago because it never was supposed to be there in the first place. So
Cheese
when
or
you
dairy?
dairy.
Mm.
So, and when it comes to dairy, if you have pure liquid whipping cream, because it's not cut with anything else, it doesn't cause the same effects that the other ones would, with 2, 1 skim per skim. And so just eliminating those and adding in a couple of those things make a world of difference. Like,
Mm.
it's crazy.
That's
And it
awesome.
seems simple to me and it's simple to talk about, but it's crazy how many people they just don't know.
I would say I for my life I've identified as an athlete. I played basketball in college, and I when I went to college, I was 201 pounds, and at the end of my sophomore year I was 228 pounds, and it was probably the most fit I'd ever been in my life. I was working out all the time, but as soon as I stopped playing in my sophomore year, immediately, like, so yeah, all the fat just, or all the muscle mass, because I would just stop training, and probably some fat as well, just fell off of me, and I dropped down to like 210. And then basically over the last 10 years, I've gone from 210 to my peak of like 238 or 239. And it's just like your stereotypical dad bod. We have 4 kids, and just was slowly putting on the weight. And basically, yeah, 4 months ago when I saw Dan's post, I was like, I have to, like, the train is going down the wrong direction on the tracks, and I need to just turn around and start going the other direction. So, yeah, in the last 49 days, I've lost 26 pounds. And I genuinely think I look better now than I ever have in my entire life. And I didn't think that, like, psychologically, I didn't think that it was possible to feel and look as good as I do now. And to do it at the age of 34 is like super, super energizing and exciting.
That's awesome. And you know what, I like that you said that, because you had that physique underneath. I just went ahead and allowed you to be able to see it. And so many people are in that same category. Even for like myself, I was a very large kid. And even though I might have still worked out here and there, it's crazy how much muscle you can put on when you're in a surplus, even if you're overweight. And then finally you have somebody that can go ahead and, take that sleeping bag off, or just go ahead and have you lose that weight. And it's insane on what you look like underneath all that.
Yeah, and what's the saying for calories? Like, calories are your weight, macros are you know what I'm talking about? Like, there's the
Yes.
calories, macros, and nutrients.
Yep. And it's crazy when you combine all three to make basically just like Captain Planet. And when you put everything where it's supposed to be, anybody can get results. It's nuts. And it's so many people overcomplicate things when it's not as complicated as it should be. And so I've just basically simplified it, and when people follow it, it just seems to work.
Because it's calories is what you weigh, macros is what you look like, and the micronutrients is how you feel. Is that the saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I would say that for me, the thing that's been most rewarding, like, I'm not someone that cooks at all. And I was like, for the last 8 years, 9 years of my life, I basically just been like, yeah, whatever you want to cook, Natalie, I'll eat. And we got 4 kids now, and they want to eat chicken nuggets and, French fries every meal, and so basically, in the last, month and a half, I've now just like learned how to cook, because I meal prep on Sunday. It takes me like 3 hours for the whole week. And it's just like, I honestly feel like I'm spending less time focusing on like health, eating, working out, and everything than I was before, because it's just such a black and white path, just like, here's the
Yes.
plan, stick to it. And I can stick to anything. Just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. But I never had the plan before.
Well, it's nice when you, like you said that, because that's what I preach all the time is, you know what? Don't overthink it. Don't think, okay, wow, it's going to take me hours and hours and hours to cook all these meals, to call this healthy food. It's going to cost me a ton. No, it's so much easier when you go ahead and, like you said, I prep on Wednesdays and Sundays, and it's perfect for the rest of the week. Even with my kids, I have a 9 and an 11-year-old. And they too like chicken fingers and that kind of stuff, but I make them homemade. I make them at the house because I want to make sure they eat all whole foods. That's a big deal for me. I don't believe in like artificial preservatives and flavors and colors and stuff. And so, they even love it because that's what they've been introduced for, so well, since they've been born.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So book recommendations, 3 book recommendations.
Oh, 3 book recommendations. I'd say the first one is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Another book. Actually, there was one that he had sent me, and I can't remember the title was, but it was something about no ceiling. I can't remember who it was. And a third, what would be a third? Actually, this helped me out with my relationship. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And honestly, if they could understand to just leave you alone for at least 15 minutes when you get home, everything would be so much better.
Just let me sit on the couch and do
Just, yeah,
nothing.
it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. Just give me just 2 seconds.
I was in a coaching group, and one of the guys had the great idea of, whenever you're transitioning from one thing to another, you're coming home, or your wife came home, or your wife comes in, or you see each other at lunch, whatever it is. He said, and this is the advice for the man, who I totally relate with: give your wife undivided attention for 60 seconds. So, like, if she walks into your office, get up, stop what you're doing, go over, give her a kiss, ask what's going on, and just be like super dialed for 60 seconds. And then say, all right, I have to get back to work, and then go back and do your thing. And that, I will say, I'm not perfect at it, but on days that I do remember to do that, it is crazy that, like, 60-second, what I tell the guy friends that listen to this, or I've said this too, it's like investing 60 seconds of your time to avoid a 15-minute argument later.
I totally agree with your statement.
So anyways, pro tip for any guy out there.
Pro tip.
And even when the women hear that, they're still like, they might be upset that we're strategizing, but they
They
enjoy
want you to do it.
yeah, they
100%.
enjoy
Yeah.
the 60 seconds of undivided attention.
Fair.
Movie suggestion.
That one's a tough one because I don't tend to watch a lot of TV. Like, honestly, I've tried to watch, I don't know, it's a TV show called Lost for the last 3 years, and I think I've gotten through maybe one season. It's insane how much busier my life has gotten. And like with my kids, I just tend to do stuff all the time. So I honestly, like, my favorite show from back in the day was Dumb and Dumber. My little guy loves that show. But,
That's great.
as a movies and stuff right now,
I mean, that's a great recommendation.
actually, Deadpool 2. I saw Deadpool 2, and it was damn near or Deadpool 3. It was one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, honestly, awesome.
Deadpool. I didn't even know they had the third. Or
Yeah,
Deadpool
Deadpool 3.
Wolverine.
Yes.
Okay. So
And
that
it
one
was like,
highly
there was so
recommend.
many one-liners in it. Even I brought my daughter. She's only 9. We had a Dottie dad thing, and she wanted to go to it. She even laughed. Like, it was so much fun.
That's awesome. And if people want to get in touch with you, how do you recommend that they do that?
They're going to do it at info@nlpfitness.ca.
Awesome. All right. Well, Alan, this was super, super fun. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and answer all my questions. And yeah, I'm excited for the future of what Chris is going to look like, and that's in part to you for facilitating and working with Dan to do all this. So thank you.
Not a problem, buddy. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, this is just the beginning. It's only been 49 days for you.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.